Hey everybody, welcome back to Show Me the Money. My name is Blaze Webster and I'm a senior here at Friends University and I'm studying media communications. I am extremely happy to introduce you to Learvis Templeton Jr., who is a local artist in town, does a lot of really cool stuff, and he's had a tremendous career, just throughout his life. So Lee, I'm very happy to be speaking with you today. And if you don't mind, maybe just give us an introduction to yourself and your career.
Okay, so Lee Templeton Jr. Full name is Learvis Templeton, but I prefer Lee. It's a lot easier for people to remember. And when you see that spelling, then you'll probably be like, what is your name? So I just shortened it up to Lee. So we could go back from the very beginning. To start off, I pretty much had a pretty unique as far as background in life. I was born in Châteauroux, France, which is 30 miles outside of Paris. And I actually had to get my American citizenship when I was at the age of 12. My father was in the military, but he had 3 kids off of the base. And so at the time, I was basically, for my first 12 years, a French citizen. So from there, we traveled all over the world. I've lived in both coasts and also lived in the Philippines, in Japan, and also even in South Dakota. So I pretty much had a history of moving every 4 years. And so that kind of helped me as far as in my future endeavors, as far as what to expect or when to just pack up and leave out. So I'm a Wichita State alumni. Sorry about that, friends, guys. I always like you too, or at least all Kansas universities. And I graduated in 91. And before that, I was a high school intern. So I've always been interested in as far as audio and video stuff. And my parents actually they were very supportive, and they pretty much opened up the checkbook and pretty much bought a lot of stuff that I wanted, to where I went from a music lover to somebody who wanted to create music to wanting to do video. And so when I went to Wichita State, they actually gave me video editing equipment, where they bought me a camera, an 8mm camera, and then they also bought me a Sony editor, which you could edit at home. So I was pretty much really deep into that as far as making my own. Everybody does this. When you get that first camera, you're making films galore. And some of the stuff makes you cringe, but it's like, okay, well, at least that's where I started from. And so once I got to Wichita State, I pretty much, I was cruising through. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was very easy for me because I had equipment at home and I can get it done. But then I had my professor call me out. So this was a cinematography professor. He wrote the movie King Kung Fu, which is a Wichita classic, to where it's like a cult film, to where it's hilarious too, because even looking at it now, you'd be like, okay, I don't know what he was on, but
yeah. If you're from Wichita, you got to see that movie. It's
yeah,
insane.
if you're from Wichita, it's one of those things that's on the underground circuit, and it will probably have you cracking up, acting and all the other stuff like that. But he was my cinematography teacher, and I thought I was breezing through the class. In the first couple of lessons, I went home and I did them. So he gave me the assignment, and I just go home and like, I'm gonna whoop out a script and I'm gonna do them. And I kept getting C's. And he said, like, I said, what's wrong with him? And he's like, there's nothing wrong with it technically. He says, your technique is good. He says, the problem is your effort. I said, I asked him, like, what do you mean by that? He says, like, I know you got the talent. Show me how to use it. Show me you can use it. So, and he basically, this stuck with me on my whole career. He says, like, instead of just relying on it, he says, you need to push yourself and get to a level. It's like, he already knows them better than the rest of the students. So he expected more of me. And that actually helped me become a better filmmaker, producer, or anything that I did that was media related, to where it's like, I always wouldn't rest on my laurels. I'm always trying to get better. So even now, even my position now, I'm always studying, researching, and trying to find tips and tricks that keeps me improving. And so once I got to the point where I was ready to graduate, I also did radio. And radio, I did that because I have one of those voices that works well on radio. And my advisors and stuff like that, they pushed me towards that because I did a high school internship at the college radio station. And I actually got hired when I was in my last year of Wichita State. And you need to focus on radio. And so that would probably be one of the mistakes that I probably, if I had a do-over, I probably would have done it over and would have focused more on the film industry. But that's basically feeding into like, you have such a great voice and you have such great production talent, you should do radio. And so I fell into the trap and did radio. And I did radio for a couple of years, and I got called to work in a recording studio. And then the one thing that people who know me remember, that I had a studio in my parents' basement from my senior in high school all through college. And we had all kind of bands and stuff like that, everything that you could imagine: gospel, rock, heavy metal, alternative, dance music, house music. I had people coming over there. I even had a Christian hip hop house. So, and you had that beat, and it's just, so I got experience to recording a lot of different styles. And a friend that I knew, one of my relatives worked at the TV station in St. Louis, and his friend was opening up a recording studio, and they needed a chief engineer. And he knew I had been doing it for like 4 years. So I went down there, went pretty good. It was like, I was there for 3 years, and it finally got to a point to where, like, when you're in St. Louis, like in the studio would have worked in Wichita, but in St. Louis, you're competing against like $1 million studios back in the 90s. And so just to give you an idea, we were one of the smaller studios. We were basically a 16-track digital studio, and we had Pro Tools. And Pro Tools at that time cost $5,000 just for the software. And so now you can get Pro Tools for like $500, and you can get the interface for like, maybe you can get a good interface for about $1,500, but just for the software alone, it costs $5,000. And then the interface costs another $4,000. So we were well equipped. And the greatest thing that came out of that is we recorded like quite a bit of stuff. We even did stuff for Anheuser-Busch, some commercial stuff. And we also did a couple of rappers that would come up there all the time. And these rappers ended up being, there's a rapper called Nelly, and he did a song called Country Grammar. And he had a group called the Lunatics. So 3 of the Lunatics used to come to our studio all the time and record. And it was pretty cool, although they did some things that you shouldn't do in studios. And we had to educate them on that. But I actually kicked one of them out of the studio because he came up there with a code, and he was coughing and hacking. I said, man, you need to go home. I said, I can take your money. I said, but you're going to have to record all this over anyway. So we're just going to move your date. And that pretty much appreciated that. So after that, I did radio for 10 years and worked with local favorites like Hitman, and also all the guys over at KKRD, and they're now over at Oldies 103.7. And it was that same thing. You had a voice, but as I stayed longer in the career, things started changing. It started going to a technical aspect to where they focused on the digital aspect, to where now you're recording your shows digitally. Now you can't select songs you want to play. And now you're recording your whole show and you're going home. And then now you go from full-time to part-time, and you go in and you record your show and you go home and you record it for the whole week. And so I had a funny incident happen about that, because I was driving around, and one of the guys said, like, I went in a quick trip, and the guy said, weren't you just on the air? And I just told him, I made a joke about, I said, yeah, I had to drive really fast, so I had to get back. And I finally told him that was all canned, so it's all pre-recorded. So I said, you never hear me tell the time, or you never hear me get specific about the weather or anything like that. And then he was kind of shocked, and that's kind of a wake-up call. So because I always tell people, you never hear about people retiring from radio. They work until the station gets sold, or you get fired, one or the other. So they don't have a great retirement plan, and it's like started becoming a dead end. So I'm like, that's when I shifted back to film again. So that would have been around 2001. And then I just focused on, I built my local business up to where I was doing corporate work, I was doing sports, and then I finally got into doing music videos. And this is what's crazy, because at the time I was able to charge $2,000 and $3,000 for a music video in Wichita, which was unheard of at that time. And I was able to get like at least 12 videos done And these guys, and I was doing like things that a lot of people were doing. Like I was using After Effects and doing all kind of things that to this day that if you look at the videos, they age pretty well. And so I'm pretty happy about that. And what's crazy about it is most local videographers who do it now, they'll do it for a couple of $100 or $500. So, and that's just basically technology is the great equalizer as far as in the world. So my cameras cost a whole lot back then, and then you can get a Canon camera that can shoot just as good as it now for like $500. So once I got into the video, I went to work at Via Christi and got to film all kind of crazy things like brain surgery and knee surgery. And one of the most bizarre things is brain surgery. And the way I tell people, because they ask me about it, I was like, well, the most interesting thing about it is watch Silence of the Lambs, and they're actually awake when they're working on your head. So you see a piece of head sitting over your skull, and they're doing things to your head, and you're talking, so they make sure they don't cut the wrong part out, and you lose your ability to think or speak. So that was crazy. And then I started doing more independent stuff, and I was about to buy a Red camera. I was actually one of the first people in Wichita that was going to get one, because I was in the line and everything else. I had the money saved up. And then I joined the Red users community and met a lot of great people. And we just kind of interact. And that's the great thing about communities like that, is like, once you become friends with people in the film industry, they always look for good people to work with. And it just so happened that one of my friends who was from Eastern Europe, he called me up and said, hey, Lee, I got a film in Mexico. And I was wondering if you can come and work for 30 days. And so I took off 30 days. It ended up being 2 months, a little hair up under 2 months. And I almost lost my job at Via Christi because I kept running out of excuses of why I wasn't at work. But it was a great experience to where it's like, that was my first feature film, and it was called Desafio. And it's actually listed on IMDb. And you'll actually see my credits as the sound effects guy in ADR, which is basically when they don't have good sound on the set, they come into the studio and they look at the video and they kind of match up the words so they can get a clean recording of it. And it is basically doing the sound effects, like getting restaurant sounds and things like that, to where they sound like they're actually in a restaurant. So that was my first feature film credit, which I'm very happy for. The guy spent like basically $3 million on the movie, which was pretty incredible, because I'm like, wow, $3 million movie? And it did real well as far as in Mexico. It's available, I think, in some places of the state. So that kind of springboarded me to where right after that, I won't go into my whole thing, but I went to Japan to visit my brother, met my wife, kept going back, and I got married. And then she came to Wichita in 2006. She hates Wichita. I'm sorry, but when you got somebody who's from Tokyo, there's a night and day difference in there. So she hung in there for 4 years, and then she couldn't take it anymore. And so I threw caution to the wind, and this is where that military background plays out. I just packed up my stuff and I moved over there. And that first 9 months, I'm like, I made a big mistake. Like, this is horrible. I can't speak Japanese, and I'm in a place where they don't speak very much English, and I don't know anybody. But it just so happened to, like, and this is where that user form, Red users, I connected with some of the people, and they found out that I was in Japan, and they started inviting me over to do things. So first I did as far as some color correction on a film. And then I started doing, like, I did a couple of special effects with Fusion, to where I knew how to use that. And that's why I always tell people, you can never not learn enough software. And I was able to do basically build some pieces to where it blocked out the mic, and I built it from the background wall and then moved with it. So it was flawless, and you didn't see the boom mic sitting up there in the shot. So, and they didn't want to crop it out too, because, like, back then that was just 4K. And now you got 6K, and you can just push it in with no problem at all. And so, like, oh, we'll fix it in post. I'm like, please don't ever, all you filmmakers, don't ever say that. Shoot it right when you're on the set the first time, because you will regret when you say you have to fix it in post, and you actually have to fix it in post. So
Yeah, it's not fun.
it is not fun at all. And it's like, you'll eat your words if you say that on the film set. Do another take as far as the shot so you can get it right. So he enjoyed the work that I did, and he started getting me more and more gigs. And so then I finally started getting bigger gigs, because the thing about Japan is, and I worked on his film too. And so I did the color matching on the film. And the thing about Japan, the film industry is not that big, but as far as commercials, these guys will spend upwards up to $5 million a commercial. And what they do is they bring stars in, like your stars that are basically on the downward slide, like your Arnold Schwarzeneggers and your Tommy Lee Jones and your Bruce Willises, and they will pitch materials as far as coffee, golf clubs, or something like that. So my first big commercial I got to work with was with Bruce Willis, and it was about this restaurant, and he's a pretty cool cat, you know, kind of like talked to the thing and like had fun with the crew. And then the next big commercial, now I was doing DIT. So for those of you who aren't familiar, that's a digital intermediate tech. So my job on the set was basically make sure the camera's up and running properly, even though that's normally the camera department. But in Japan, you had to make sure the camera settings were right, and you copied the media and you did color correction on the set so that the director, and you would build a LUT up, as far as that, a lookup table for those who aren't familiar with the term, to where it's like you would build it in DaVinci Resolve and you would save it along with the file. So when they got back to the editing room, editing suite, they'd have a reference on the color that the director was trying to get. So I got really good at that. And so the next one was Pierce Brosnan, and that's the biggest commercial I've ever worked on, and it was worth $3 million. And like I said, I thought I was getting paid very well. And I found out what he was making, and I found out how much his suit cost. It was a $10,000 suit that they specifically bought and let him keep it for the suit. It was the James Bond suit, but it was Gucci or some custom tailor made to where they did that. And that's what I started learning about as far as with Japan, as far as their protocol, as far as like in the US, as far as on independent films, we're always trying to help each other. In Japan, and this is to a certain extent in California, where you're with a union place, you do your job and that's it. You don't do anything else. You don't help out with anything. And I saw one of the girls who was a grip, and she was trying to push up a cart. And I come over there, like me being the naive American, I'm coming over there like, I'm gonna give you a hand. And she says, no, Lisa, you can't do that because you're making me look weak in front of the director and I'll never get hired again. I said, oh, okay. And she says like, and then she told me these words, which I'll never forget. She says, in Japan's film market, you're either working hard or you're hardly working. So basically, I'm hanging around catering and stuff like that until it comes time to change out the memory cards and copy the thing and do the little color grading. But I spent a lot of time on set, and as far as just doing nothing, and you're getting paid very well to do nothing, and then you do your job very well, and then you'll keep getting jobs. And then I got another job, which was for H&M, and they're out of Sweden, and that's where I experienced some of the, I wouldn't say racism aspect, but I had somebody questioning like, what are you doing on my film set? To where he kind of looked at me, it's like, okay, I'm in Japan, and here's this African-American guy. What the heck is going on here? And I'm with these Swedes and stuff like that, and they got these big 6 foot tall blonde women, I'm in 6'2", and I'm feeling like normally I'm tall in Japan, but hanging out with that crew made me feel like, God, I know how short people feel. So he was kind of standoffish, but then he saw my work in a particular program that I use that basically told you the camera, told you the lens, told you all the settings, told you in the camera, we were using RE cameras, and it had all that information printed out for him as far as everything. And he loved it because he can go through the shots, the list that I printed off. And then all of a sudden he went from, I don't really know what you're doing on this set, to where it's like, you're a good guy, come on out here and we're going to go drink afterwards. And like, well, I don't drink. So, you can come in and have a Sprite, come on with us. And so hung out with them. And then we had a shoot the next day. It was a 2-day shoot. And he came back and he says, Lee, would you like to be the second assistant? I said, well, what is that? And he says, well, you just got to make sure that the lenses, I'll call for lenses and you can put them on and make sure it's set up right. So it turned in from an opportunity, like, I don't know what you're doing, to where I like you now, I trust you with more things to do. And then I also, and then I'll probably move on. The biggest thing that I worked on was Wolverine, the Wolverine. And basically, before Marvel got big, Fox was pretty much heavily into the X-Men films. And that one was filmed in Japan, and I worked for the company where we did the pickup shots. So we shot like for 4 hours, and probably 2% of it made into the actual movie. And even that 2% is only on there for like about maybe 1 or 2 seconds. So, but it's kind of cool that you can walk around and say, like, I worked on a Marvel film, and my students, they freak out. Like, oh, you worked on a Marvel film? Oh my God. You worked on Wolverine? Did you meet Hugh Jackman? I said, well, it didn't quite work like that. I said, so is your name in the credits? And I said, no, this is the company that I work for. You have to look for that. He's like, oh, okay. But it gets the kids really involved with me as far as when I teach. And then I also, that was the biggest one. And then I also work with Kenki Kids. This is a Japanese duo group that they're in the Guinness Book of World Records for the consecutive #1 hits, 28 #1 hits. And they work with Michael Jackson and all that. There's just like, it would be the equivalent of you basically meeting Michael Jackson, Bruno Mars, and getting a chance to work with him. They had me work on 2 of his videos, and he released this custom video to where it's an album and a video, music with experimental music. And I got to work on 2 videos, and my name is actually in the credits on that DVD CD kit. And that thing cost $200. And just to have your name on there and you're the only American on there, that's like a badge of honor and stuff like that. And I always show it to my kids, and they kind of like freak out. They're like, wow, your name is on it. This is your name. And like, I said, yeah, so it's kind of cool. So once I was going real good, and then I had a child, autistic kid. And so at first when he was little, it was okay. But as he got older, he had more needs, and he was a daddy's boy. And so when I would go on these film sets, as far as for like, sometimes it'd be 2 days and sometimes it'd be 3 weeks to a month, he would just lose it and have major meltdowns to where I'm getting calls on set. So I had to make a career change when that happened. And I decided, well, I'm gonna go ahead and start teaching. I said, at least if I teach, then I can be with him while he goes to school and I'll go to school, and we'll get out at the same time. And so I came back to Wichita, got my master's from Southwestern College in teaching, and I was about to go back to Japan, and then an opportunity came up at Gordon Parks Academy. And for people who aren't familiar with that, Gordon Parks is a K-8, but it's a multimedia magnet. And when I first came over there, they were just putting in the multimedia. And they hired me as an English teacher, but they knew my background because they used to always ask questions when I was student teaching. And so I got a chance to build a program up from scratch. And I actually have a full-blown recording studio in there. We use cinematography cameras that are the same as Wichita State. And they have all the tools they have to where you can do filmmaking. They use all the professional software, Logic, and they also use DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut, to where these kids between the ages of 11 and 14 are learning things that Wichita State, they actually complained about coming to our school and not knowing these just basic things. So we're really proud of that. And it's like, we have a waiting list to get in our school now. And so kids from all over the city come over here to work, to come get into the class. And so, and they learn a whole lot, and they basically make them better filmmakers. Because I always say, like, we consume more multimedia than ever before. And my advice to anybody who's getting in this business is learn how to make it, because there's always going to be a need for producers. There's going to be a need for sound people. There's going to be a need for cameramen, because as you know, Disney Plus, Amazon, and Hulu, and I can go, and then those off the wall ones like Tubi and stuff like that, they're all looking for content, and they want people to create that. So you can make yourself a nice career as far as in the film industry. And don't get married, because that's going to cause problems. But anyway, unless your partner works in the film too. But you can basically build it how far that you want to go. Like if you just want to do local corporate stuff, you can make a good living at that. Or if you say like, well, I want to do feature films, you'll have to relocate because our film industry it's growing, but it's not going to never be like a Austin or Atlanta or Florida or California. So, but you can make a very good living. So that's pretty much sums up as far as where I'm at. So like I said, I'm at a good place and I still do projects because this is a funny thing. Before the COVID broke out, which was 2018, I had my film crew from Japan, one of my film crews, they called me up and they said, we know you're in Kansas, how you doing? I'm like, I'm doing great. And they said, would you be able to come for a 4-day shoot in Hays, Kansas? We're doing this video on a Monosaurus or something like that. And they did this big, huge 4-part special, and each part was 90 minutes long. And it was on NHK television, which is Japan's national broadcasting television. And I got to do DIT and as far as sound on this set. And they flew this professor in that he was an expert on it. And we were seeing things in the museum in Hays, Kansas that nobody gets to go down there and go down to the thing. And that was cool. And then they sent me like the part of the project that I worked on. It's kind of cool knowing that in a country of 133 million people, they were watching stuff that you worked on. So I still do projects, but I normally do them like in the summertime. I'll take like on average of about anywhere from like 3 to 5 projects a summer towards like, gotta spend time with the little guy, but I always want to make sure I keep my skills sharp. So I'm always doing something like, and eventually I want to make my own documentary. And that's the great thing about it as far as I always tell people, because they always say like, I got to know how to write film. I said, no, you don't. I said, you just got to know how to use your software. And if you want to be a camera person, know how to run that camera. I said, you don't have to have the ideals, but if you can get that vision that the director wants, I said, then there's going to always be work for you. I said, you don't have to write or do story panels. You just got to look at it and like, okay, that's the shot he wants. That's the shot he gets. Or like, I just got to hold this boom mic up and keep it out the shot, get the next job. So that pretty much sums it up for me. I'm loving my thing to where it's like, I'm getting a chance to give young people that opportunity to do filmmaking and not just broadcasting, because a lot of schools in Wichita teach broadcasting style. And the one thing that I emphasized when I took the job, like I said, I'm gonna teach them film style. And so I will teach the students to where I'll treat you like a film crew and I will fire you too. And that'll give you a good grade. And it's like, and the kids had to get used to me because I would say, that's garbage. And you can't say that to me. I'm like, yes, I can. I said, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it, because I said, when you're working in film, in multimedia, I said, they're not going to accept something that's subpar. I said, you better have it good enough to where it's actually better than what they asked for. I said, if you can't perform like that, then you probably should not, at least you don't have the effort and the desire to perform like that. I said, you probably should select something else as far as lose your career. I said, because I said, if I ever get the perfect shot, then I will retire. I said, but I know that in my whole long time, as far as doing camera operations and all the other things and color corrections, I know none of them have been perfect. So when I do get it perfect, I'm gonna do like when you bowl a 300 game, you take your shoes off and your ball and you retire. So I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was wondering, with your students, do you guys post the films online, or do you guys submit to festivals, or are they viewable anywhere?
Not yet, because we haven't had, this is my 4th year here. We did it part-time my first year. And then the program is just getting to the point to where, because we had carryover students and they weren't interested in this kind of stuff. But these last year and this year, unfortunately, this COVID thing kind of messes up stuff. We actually have students who have the desire to go the full gamut. Now they have projects and stuff like that, but and I always tell them, it's like, I always feel like there were a couple of projects that were pretty decent, but I didn't feel they were festival worthy or entering any contest. And I told them, I said, I'm going to do a critical eye like a judge would do it. And I said, like, I don't want stuff coming out of our school that looks okay. I said, we're named after Gordon Parks, ironically, which is the photographer and the filmmaker. And I said, we need to live up to his expectations. I said, he would never let a subpar photo or put out a subpar movie. And that's my thoughts. The COVID stuff has put us back, basically made us take a step back. But I think between our 7th graders, who will be 8th graders next year, and our 6th graders, we have a strong people who would have desired it, where it's like, these are people who have done YouTube, as far as trying to do YouTube channels, trying to make small films. And, and we talked about this in a previous time, where it's like, they're at that stage to where they're making stuff and they want to, unlike us, where we didn't have the opportunities, they have opportunities to basically get it to where it's like, your stuff is looking professional before you can get into high school. So, yeah, I know I'm kind of mad too. I'm like, why didn't Wichita USD 259 spend this kind of money back then? So,
yeah.
But I think it's wonderful because we need more filmmakers, and a lot of our kids are like, even the kids who are locally, as far as from the neighborhood, I always tell them, anybody can get in front of the mic or get in front of the camera. I said, who do you think is going to be known better? Beyonce's career has an infinite number of years, and then she's basically on the back. I said, now, if you record Beyonce, you can keep recording. You can record the Megan Thee Stallions. You can record Dua Lipa and all that. I said, because those jobs never get old, and you don't become basically a has-been or washed up, or basically you don't appeal to people. So I said, like, having those technical skills was going to carry you a lot farther than you trying to be a rapper. And so they understand that. And I said, like, and with the filmmaking, I was like, it's endless. I said, if you're really good, I said, we even had a guy in Wichita. I'm not in Wichita, but in the surrounding area, that he had like 1 million people, YouTube followers. So it can be done. I said, and I told him, I said, like, the key thing is make sure your footage looks good, make sure you have content that people want to look at. I said, if you can do that, I said, then you'll build up a following, because people enjoy good stuff. I said, now, if you're out there and your mic's dropping and your camera's changing because you've left it on auto and you're sitting by a curtain, then it basically will break down and it'll look terrible and they'll stop viewing it. So
that's awesome. I think Wichita, thankfully, is one of those places where I think there's a lot of encouragement for younger people in film. Especially with Tallgrass, they have a program called like the Emerging Programmers, where they bring in like a lot of young people, and they watch movies and help program the festivals. But another thing they do is that they also, like, when the filmmakers come in, they have basically unlimited pass throughout the festival. So that was a program that I did. So I got to meet like Stephen Lang from Avatar, and Heather Morris from Glee. I mean, and among many others. So that's right in their age group.
Yeah, so. It's like I said, I hope that Tallgrass gets to a point to where they're letting middle schools. I know they do them in California and they do them on the East Coast, where it's like they have festivals to where you're a middle schooler, you can submit it. And so I hope Tallgrass gets to that point to where we can get the young filmmakers. And I think, like, once you see your film on a big screen, that'll change your life. To where it's like, wow, I'm sitting up here in the AMC or the Warren Theater, and this is my film showing on this screen, and these people are watching it and enjoying it. So like I said, I love the art. So
it's really an incredible feeling seeing something that you made for the first time, and you have people there that are reacting to it who aren't friends or family necessarily. So
that's cool. Like I said, even if you just had a part of it, just knowing that, like, okay, I helped make this, that's a great feeling. Like I said, like all of us, and let's be honest, all of us can't be creative and write things that are witty, that are going to be Seinfeld, and or it's going to be in game or something like that. But the fact that you can work on something that just impacts people to where it's like, and I always tell my students, if you can get somebody to get emotionally involved with your stuff, I said, you're done. I said, they come out there and they hate that guy in your film, and I said, then you've done your job, because you got them so emotionally involved that they dislike it. Because one of my students, and this is one of the ones that I was going to enter into the contest, he did a bullying video. And this kid he played the role. I mean, he wrote it and he played the role of a total jerk. And teachers were looking at us like, if I didn't know Sean, I wouldn't like him after I saw this video, because he looks like he's a class B jerk, A AH, you know.
Yeah.
So, but he played the role, and I said, and I told him, and this is, like I said, this is why I said my seventh graders were good. I said, look at the reaction that you got from adults who don't even teach you, who are in other parts of the buildings, but they're telling people, go upstairs and look at that film that the sixth graders did. And he got the taste for it. He's ready to get back in there. But like I said, this whole COVID thing, I'm like, everybody put your mask on and get us back to normal so we can get back to doing normal stuff. So
amen. Yeah. Well, I mean, really, really wonderful stuff. And you're a tremendous person, and I'm so glad that you've started this school program that gives kids opportunities that are pretty much unprecedented. I would say. I mean, like only now is that even possible.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy because whenever we go to the meetings and the board, the USD 5 board, there he is, Templeton, you're doing great things over there. And my whole thing is like, I'm kind of a background guy. That's why I like film working, because I like to be behind the scenes. And my thing is, and I told him this, I said, I worry about high school. I said, because we got great programs all over as far as the local universities. I said, what happens when a kid of mine comes out there and he knows how to color grade stuff. He knows how to do all this and that and effects, and he knows how to block his shots off. I said, but then he gets into high school and he's taking the video class and he's like, I learned that in the sixth grade.
Yeah.
In the beginner's class. And he starts thinking, I know more than the teacher knows.
Yeah.
And it's a sad thing where it's like, the teachers mean well, but these type of positions are basically cush positions, because you don't have to worry about state standards. They do have standards reference grading, but it's not as critical as, because these are elective classes, and the teachers actually jump to that even though they don't have any experience. And what I wish they would do if they commit to doing something like this is put the time and effort into learning it, and not just call me up and like, hey, what program is that you're using? I'm like, I use DaVinci Resolve. I'm gonna have to download it. I'm like, have you ever opened up DaVinci Resolve? I said, it's not iMovie.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing, and they don't learn the software. And one of the teachers told me, and this is at one of our meetings last year, she said, I just let the kids run it. They tell me how to do stuff. And this almost gets me in trouble. I almost had that unfiltered, like, well, why are you teaching the class if they're teaching you?
Yeah,
so I said, exactly. They're in the class to learn from you. I said, I would think that if you took a position like this, you would put the time into where you can give those kids, they can walk away knowing that they have some tools in their toolbox, their life toolbox, as far as being a filmmaker or multimedia content creator, where they can pull that back out later on. And oh yeah, I learned this back in sixth grade, or I learned this back in eighth grade. This is what I'm supposed to do, versus like, I was showing the teacher, she didn't know anything about the program. So,
well, and the sad thing is that kind of happens on a collegiate level sometimes too. I mean, I have a friend that went to film school in California, and like his first class, they were going over like, this is the rule of thirds, this is the 180 line, and it's like, it's like if you're going to film school in California, if you don't know this stuff yet, I mean, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, especially California. I would probably do that side eye. I'm like, is it too late to get my refund on my tuition? Because you don't know what you. And so like, I think when you have people like that have experience and they share it, that's beneficial for the industry as a whole. Because then what happens is it starts pushing the levels up as far as people, because like we had a meeting just today and about as far as trying to do something at Northeast Magnet, because they're the arts magnet school, but they don't have any film, they don't have any audio, and they're trying to figure it out, and they're just talking about, we're going to do this and this, and we're going to bring WSU students. And like, well, you need to get somebody that can actually run the program and run it with a little bit of passion towards like, don't let those kids settle for stuff. Because I have my film kids go to hikes, and Mr. Templeton, this is terrible. I don't know what to do. And so, and just to keep that keep that desire to create burning in them, and then have somebody out to push them and not do like the whole thing. Like I said, you have to have a different mindset to where it's like, when you're teaching English, like I said, oh, that's not bad. You can do better. But when you're teaching film, that's terrible.
Yeah.
This is why. And so you need to go there and like I said, my favorite thing is to tell a student is like, do you really want to turn this in the way it looks?
Yeah.
And I know when I say those words, they knew like, can you at least give me some advice on what I need to fix? I said, I don't know, tell me. I said, look at your film closely and tell me what you think. So,
Yeah.
So I said, look at your film closely and tell me what you think, and
Yeah.
do all the editing and stuff like that. But that whole just challenging them, and they're just not used to that because they're used to getting stuff sugar coated and given to them and stuff like that, and teachers giving them breaks. And I told them, it's like, in real life, you don't get a break to make a second mistake. I said, if it's my film crew and you make a mistake, I'm on the phone that evening and getting somebody else to replace you, because time is money and I can't afford to redo something because you weren't doing your job correctly.
Yeah.
So, you know, I bring the realities in it, but I keep it in a fun manner to where it's like the kids enjoy it. And like I said, when they see the looks on adults' faces and when they hear like, you did that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and it's like, it changes their whole world. And it's like I said, we got a couple of them that want to be filmmakers. We got like a young lady who wants to be an audio engineer, and she's already engineered her first album, her grandfather's folk album. And she was getting ready to do another one, but the COVID broke out. And this is a sad thing because she's really deep into it. And I still give her like, as far as multi-track audio, as far as stem mixing to where she can still keep her chops sharp. But it's sad that she'll go to high school and they won't have anything close to that.
Yeah.
She said she wants to do sound for film, and she actually did a ADR as far as I took a bunch of Disney films and they got to select like little short 30-second one-piece things, and she took Wreck-It Ralph and she did all the character voices in the girls when they had the princess meeting. And it's hilarious because she's changing her voice and she has it perfectly synced up with the film to where it's like adults were like, that's incredible. I'm like, no, that's ADR.
Yeah.
I said, that's the way it works. You look at the film and you match up the words, and they were loving stuff like that. So give them a taste of like what it would be like in a real life doing that. I think it keeps the kids a lot more interested as far as just giving us like okay, write a story, stand in front of the school, do a newscast story, and then basically pretend like you're doing a story, then come back in there. Like, well, why don't you use that imagination to come up with something creative? So,
well, this video needs to get out so more schools can start doing that, and then we can revolutionize how that's being taught.
And I'm hoping that they're finally realizing they need to plug in that high school aspect. Yeah. I think once they do that, then they can get a lot more kids in here, because our biggest situation is I won't have enough room. And I'm going to do this, maybe kind of give you a glance about my room.
Oh, there you go.
And so normally you see IMAX all around it. And then once you get over here, you can see there's the studio.
Oh, wow.
And it's got a 32 channel soundboard too with a Behringer 32X. And there's normally 10 IMAX stationed in here. And I have a closet full of cameras and audio gear to where, like I said, the district spent just in the first year and a half, they spent over $100,000. And they keep asking me, like, what else do you need? I'm like, okay, yeah, gimbal. Yeah, I need a gimbal. DJI gimbal. Yeah, I need that. And so, and I'm always thinking of things, what would I use on a film set? And then they're actually getting stuff like that, because I want to shoot more stuff outdoors too. They're getting me all the C-stands and all the other stuff like that, and the clamps and the flags and all that too. It's like, now I can give these kids a real true experience. Like, okay, we got harsh light. How are we going to fix this? So, like I said, I'm loving it too. It's like, I still miss the creative aspect and hanging out with my buddies as far as the production guys.
Yeah.
The pre-production guy, and not even my post-production guys. I still miss that, but doing it and having the fun with the kids and having them open their eyes is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're building up the next gen, so it's very important.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, don't put my name on the program, just call it the multimedia program. So then that way they don't focus on me, they focus on program.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
awesome.
always have to remind them that when they're dog and ponying me around the district. This is Lee. So I'm like, no, the kids are doing wonderful things.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, like even in the school, like, can you come take this picture? I said, if I take the picture, it's going to cost you. I said, but I got a whole classroom, 3 classrooms full of photographers that can come do it. I said, don't rely on me. I said, because I said, when I charge for this. I said, you don't want to pay my prices.
Certainly.
So,
Awesome.
okay, so I think that,
Yeah, we went a little over, but I had a great time talking to you, and I hope people enjoy listening to it. I know they will.
okay.
Yeah, man. Just
So
get oh, go ahead.
now here's a question for you.
Yeah.
What year are you in as far as your program?
I'm a senior.
Okay, yeah. Now, are you planning on staying in Wichita, or are you planning on venturing out?
Yeah. So my sights are on grad school, and hopefully,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and now here I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Here we
So
go.
it's like if we get back to normal, hopefully next year, as far as the end of the year when school starts up, would you mind coming to one of my classes and speaking as an independent filmmaker?
Oh, I would love to.
And then just bring something that you worked on, and
Yeah.
the kids get such a kick out of that, to where it's like, oh, this guy, he's a regular guy like me. It's like they don't get starry-eyed, and and then when you show them stuff, because I had a filmmaker come in there before, and he did experimental films, and it blew their mind.
Yeah.
Because like, I didn't know you could do films like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can do what you want, whatever you imagine. And at first they're like, here comes this kind of crazy looking old guy. And he comes in there and he starts showing his videos and explaining how he did it. And they're like, I'm gonna try how to do that. And so you did this with the water, and you did this, and then you put it at this speed. And they asked him a whole bunch of questions. So it's like, first they were kind of like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
You're not Steven Spielberg. You're not Ryan Cooper. You didn't direct Black Panther. Who are you?
Yeah.
And then and once they see that, and I want to give them more experiences as far as that. And you can bring your guitar. You can go in there. You can let the recorded session on you. Because remember, I told you they're getting into that, and I want to get to a point to where I'm bringing in people who can actually play, because they work with loops. And I said that's not really a music experience.
Yeah.
Call me a snob, but it's like, and even though I can only play a little bit, but I recorded people that can actually play. I said, once you hear a concert where people are playing live and they start improvising on the stuff that you've heard, I said, there's nothing like that as far as just a whole nother level to where it's like, I love this song, and now he's done something that I can't even get on the download. I get it on Spotify. So letting them know that recording real instruments is like super fun. I said, let's think about it. I said, you can get in there and they can jam. And the next thing you know, you're hearing that song on as far as streaming service or even the local radio if it gets big enough. And so when they look at stuff like that, they're like, yeah. And like I said, the same thing happened to the girl who recorded her grandfather. He came in there and they're like, kids like, oh, what's he gonna do? He's probably gonna play some country and western or something like that. But then when they hear him and they hear the musicianship in bluegrass, and he just started going and just playing and then fingering stuff like that, wow, you can make that kind of sound. I said, well, yeah, that's what a musician does. I said, they practice. And I said, when you hear it played live, I said, I can go online and just pay $10 for those loops all days long. I said, but when you hear somebody actually play something, I said, it's a whole different ball game there.
Yeah.
So, but okay, I think I got to get out there and do my bus duty.
Awesome.
Get these kids kicked out of here.
Yeah.
So Blaze, it's been a pleasure. I know I ran my mouth mostly 90% of the time, but
no, this is wonderful.
I love it to where I can share the story and like I said, get people fired up and start getting more of us in there.
Yeah.
More of us Wichitanians into doing this stuff and getting our names out there. So
certainly.
We got to do something since Don Johnson and all those guys.
Awesome.
Okay, so I got to get going.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for everything and good luck on your future schooling endeavors and creative and everything else.
Okay, and I got your email, and I kid you not, when I tell somebody I'm going to contact them, I said, look around in the fall and you'll be getting an email from me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll see you later.